are you ready to do some reverse applique? I can't wait to show you how much fun this is. All right, so let's take a closer look at our instructions. You're going to see right here what is required, all right? And it also tells us that we're going to be using flexi foam in this block, and we'll also need some wash away topping. We'll need light mesh cutaway stabilizer and some fusible backing. So let's talk about prepping our fabrics first, all right? So you can see here that I have all of the pieces cut for my block, all right? This is the little chickie. This is the egg behind it. I have a piece of my background fabric and then the lining fabric as well. Now, when it comes to fusible backing, I can't say enough good things about it. This is from Kimberbell, and it is highly recommended that you put it on the back of your backgrounds. It's not necessary to put it on every single piece of fabric, but most definitely the backgrounds is a great start. All right, you have a little bit of a shiny side. That's your glue side. So you're going to flip your background block right side down and then place that shiny side of the fusible backing directly on top. Now I'm going to take it over to my ironing station and press it. While I'm over there ironing, I'm also going to do one other thing, and that is I'm going to take my lining fabric and I'm going to spray it with a little bit of starch. You could use something like Terial Magic or even Best Press. So you just want a little slight stiffness, but nothing like having the fusible backing on. That's not needed here, but just a little more stability there with the help of some starch or Best Press. I'm also going to do that same thing with my egg fabric as well. All right, so let's go ahead and head over to the ironing board and we'll do just that. And then I'll use a little bit of spray starch on top. And I always like to iron from both the front and the back when it comes to my fusible backing, just to make sure it's nice and adhered. Now we're going to go ahead and hoop the stabilizer only in the hoop. And for this, we're going to be using a 5x7 hoop and using light mesh cutaway stabilizer. You want to make sure that that stabilizer is nice and tight in there and that the hoop is nice and tight. So with the reverse applique, this is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. All right, so it's really important that you pay very close attention to what I'm going to share, because I promise if you do, this is actually going to be a piece of cake. But I can certainly understand why it could be a little confusing, because it is a little bit different. We're definitely going to be using our advance button on the machine and our reverse button as well. I will show you how to do that through the different steps that are outlined in the instructions. All right, because I am doing background quilting, this changes things a little bit. Now remember, background quilting designs are sold separately and can be found at kimberbell.com. You can see here that option 1 says block by block quilting, while option 2 says hooping instructions. Now you're going to choose option 2 if you decide not to do the block by block quilting, and let's say you're going to do it on a long arm or perhaps on your own sewing machine yourself. That's where you go to hooping instructions too. However, we're going to do block by block quilting in this video. But note here, it says, if using block by block quilting, refer to the reverse applique with block by block quilting PDF file. Instructions below are for use with a traditional quilting method, which means it's your quilting after the quilt top is complete. Make sure that you find in your instruction book the separate file that is called Reverse Applique with Block by Block Quilting. All right, you're going to want to pull that up. In fact, I printed mine out and I have a little tab here so I can go right to it. And that's going to tell you exactly how to do the background quilting just a little differently than what we are normally used to. It's not difficult, but it does take a little bit more thinking to process this whole step, okay? So no worries, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come back to the back of my binder here, and you can see that I printed out reverse applique with block by block quilting. Now for this video, we're going to start with the bottom row, and you'll see here that I've already stitched out 2 of the designs. We've got that adorable chocolate bunny, and then we have a nice little furry white bunny, actually used with Minky. How fun is that? All right, so what I'm about to begin is the little chick 3. Now, one thing to notice is if you take a really close look, this is what's called reverse applique. So it actually forms somewhat of a window. If you look real closely, this is a nice, clean, even edge around it. And then the applique is formed on top. All right, but we still definitely want our background quilting designs in it because they're just so cute, right? So this is what we're doing, reverse applique with block by block quilting. This is the bottom row. Now the top row is actually going to be done just a little bit differently. So don't pay attention to that right now. Let's go ahead and just focus on this method for our bottom row, okay? In looking at the directions, it tells us that we're going to be loading the 4x4 Easter 4 design. This again is background quilting. And you'll notice as we go through the steps, it changes a little bit, but you load this first and then you add on the 5x7 block by block bunny 2. Now this has been specially digitized because the batting lines are actually included in this file. So first we bring this into our machine, then we add this design on top of it. Let's go ahead and find those on our machine now. So now that I'm at my screen, I'll go ahead and pull up my designs that have been saved on a USB stick. And the first design I want to pull up are those cute loops for the 4x4 hoop. Let's take a look. And you can see it right here. And I want to make sure and hit set. However, I'm not ready to embroider quite yet because I want to hit the add button so that I can add that cute little chick on top. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add, go to my USB stick once more. And this time I'm looking for the 5x7 chick. Okay, I don't want you to get confused. You're going to notice there's a 4x4 chick here. However, we go a little bit further down, whoops, right there, and you see KD 5130 5x7. It's really important because this has been digitized just a little bit differently. All right, so the 5x7 is the one we want, and I hit set, and now embroidery. All right, I'm ready to rock and roll. Well, kind of, because first I need to find out exactly how am I stitching this out. This is unlike any other design that we have done thus far with the mini quilts. So let's go back to our instruction book to tell us how. If you turn to page 2 under reverse applique, it's going to tell us how to put this all together. But something I want you to really pay close attention to is that we have directions that are in red and directions that are in blue. What does it mean? Well, if you brought the designs in together and you combined the designs like I just did on my machine, I'm going to be paying closer attention to any instruction that's in blue. That's telling me the exact machine step number that I'm on. If I brought them in separately, all right, I do my background quilting first and then I bring and do my egg after that, then I'm going to be paying close attention to the directions in red. So why is this important? Because we're going to go back and forwards a little bit with this design. It says to stitch the batting placement line from the specially digitized block embroidery file, which is machine step 6 of the combined files, which is what I did, or machine step 1 if you're doing them separately. It's going to stitch out the placement outline, and then I know exactly where to place my batting. All right, let's scooch on over back to the machine, and you're going to notice up here it says 0 out of 22. All right, that means there are 22 steps in this block. Now, in order to advance, what was the direction that, told me the number? It was number 6 that I needed to go to, right? Just as outlined in the instructions. So in order to do that, I need to advance steps. So I'm going to come down to my plus minus, and you can see by my arrows exactly if I'm going to advance forward or backwards. Well, you notice right here, it says 2 out of 22, 3 out of 22, and I'm trying to get to the number 6. Aha, the number 6 is exactly where I need to be. Again, that's because I had combined my designs. All right, so I'm going to take my 5x7 hoop and carefully slide it into that channel right there. And I am using a dark color thread for this just because I want you to be able to see it a little bit easier on camera, but it really doesn't matter what color thread you use, all right? So let's go ahead and stitch the placement line first for our project. It's now time to place my batting over top. And you just want to make sure that it covers all of the placement lines. All right, I'm going to pull this out and come right over here to trim it up. All right, so not only are we supposed to trim the outside, but on this one, we're supposed to also trim the inside. So how am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to grab my little flexi snips here and very carefully just kind of poke a hole in there to get started and do a cut. So what they're asking us to do is to trim it away, but make sure you don't trim the stabilizer. Okay, we're not cutting away the stabilizer at this time, but we are going to trim just the top layer of the batting, and then we will cut close to the stitch line. All right. So I would highly recommend you do it on a flat surface because you don't want to take the risk of having your project pop out of the hoop. All right, so there we have it. We are now ready to move on to placing this back in the machine. So we want to make sure that we are on step 8, all right, of the combined files, or if you did them separately, you would be on machine step 3. Now, this is going to do an outline of where to place our background fabric. We'll put the background fabric on top, and then it will do a tack down stitch holding it all in place. Okay, so we just finished doing the tack down stitch of that background, right? But it tells us to not trim the fabric at this time. It's even highlighted in yellow to make sure that we remember. Now, at this time, only the quilting is going to be stitched. So in order to do that, we actually need to go back a few steps on our machine. So you can see right here that in both red and blue, we need to skip ahead or go backwards to step number 5. With mine, I'm going to go backwards to step 5. Let's go over to the machine and do that. You can see right here, I'm on step number 10 out of 22. I need to be on step 5. So at this point, I'm going to use my backwards arrow, and you can see the number changing right here. And I go back to step 5. Voila, there we go. Now it's time to do the fun part, which is the background quilting. So again, I'm on step 5. I'll go ahead and put my foot down and begin stitching. Make sure you use the same color thread that you would like to use in your background quilting. Now that our background quilting is done, it's time to finish the rest of the reverse applique. So it's really easy to do, but we do need to move forward a few more steps. All right, let's pay close attention to the instructions found on page 2 when it comes to doing reverse quilting. You can see here that we finished the background quilting, and now it tells us to go ahead and just follow the embroidery instructions to complete the block. So if I'm doing the reverse applique blocks, which include bunny 2 and 3, as well as chick 3, which is the one I'm working on right now, I need to move forward to machine step 10 of combined files. If you did not combine your files, then you need to move forward to step 5. All right, with that being done, I am finished with this part of the background quilting. That's all done. So I'm going to go backwards now to, let's see, right here. I'm back on page 11, and I can go ahead and just do everything as normal. So, but before I do that, make sure I begin with step 10. All right, so let's go over to the machine again, and I'm going to move forward. Oops, that's backwards, don't want that. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All righty, here we go. So this is going to be the placement outline for my egg. I'm also going to go ahead and change thread colors just so that the purple doesn't get lost with my background quilting. I want to make sure that I can clearly see where my egg is supposed to go. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so that I can show you a little bit closer to the egg placement line. I know it's probably hard to tell, but it's right here. And remember when we had the other lining piece from cutting earlier? Well, this is where it goes over. So I need to go ahead and put it with the right side facing down. All right, so right side facing down, just over top of that. All right, so let's go ahead and remove this from the machine. And this is really important because you definitely want to give yourself grace, patience, time, and a really nice hard table to do this next step. We don't want to risk the project popping out of the hoop because we're actually going to cut through all the layers here. So remember, we've got several layers to cut through, right? We want to even cut through the stabilizer to remove the fabric that's in the center of the egg. However, on this step, we're going to cut about 1/4 inch from the outside. So if this is the outside of my egg right here, then I want to make sure and cut approximately 1/4 inch in. Now I know it's a little bit difficult to see here, so I'm actually going to take this little erasable pen here and just go over this so you can see it a little bit better. What I want to do is I want to cut to be about 1/4 inch from that stitch line, okay? So if it's easier to draw that beforehand and then you have a goal to get to without going past. If you go a little past, it's going to be fine, but you want to be about 1/4 inch from the stitch line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little tweezers here to help me out with this to get started and just kind of hold on to that a little bit. I feel like I'm performing major surgery or something here. And you can see that I already got started, but I need to go a little bit further in. So if you need to cut it in layers, you can do that. And it looks like perfect. I'm able to get all the way in. And now I'm just cutting to that line that I drew. So again, it's just approximately 1/4 inch. Now notice I didn't get my stabilizer there, so I'm gonna just do another little cut, easy as can be. But please, please be careful while you do this. And the results are worth it. Let me tell you, they are beautiful when it's all done. But just take your time, don't be in a rush, and you'll be just fine. All right. So I've got that part of it done. But the next step is to now start cutting perpendicular lines right into that outside curve. And you want to keep your cuts about 1/4 inch away from each other. Now, there is another little trick I can share with you, and that is you could also cut from the back, and you can cut up to the line that was originally stitched at the beginning. Again, that's probably hard to see here, but you would see it at home a lot easier. But there is a stitch line out here. You'll have the best looking results on this project if you will cut just past the line. Now, you won't be able to see that line on the front. You can only see it on the back. But you can just trim right into that line. And again, even a little bit past is going to be just fine. And just snip away. So it looks like we've snipped all the way around. You can see here. Now it almost feels magical when I do this, because I'm going to flip that hoop right side up again, and I'm going to take that lining fabric and push it all the way through to the back side. And now you have this beautiful finished edge. Can you see that right there? Take a look at that. No raw edges. It's gorgeous. So I'm just going to pull all of this back. All right. Just kind of pull on it tight. And it's not going to stay in place quite yet. I want to take a look from the other side again. If you're feeling like there's an area that could use a little bit more added trimming, you can do that now. And really the way you know is just by pulling on this, and if it doesn't kind of come all the way around to a nice clean edge, then you might need to just trim in a little bit further. But this is looking pretty good to me. This one, there's a little area right here that I might just do an added cut. All right, so it might mean you just need to cut a little closer. It might mean a little bit further in. All right, let me pull this back and take a look. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to actually iron this in place and use a little bit of Kimberbell paper tape to hold it in place. However, this is really important. You don't want to do this just the way it is, because if I push down on this, it runs the risk of it popping, right? So I'm over here at my ironing station, and I'm going to use the help of my scissors just to kind of hold that hoop up in place. And I'm going to just take some extra fabric, or if you have a towel, you can do that on top as well. Or you could even fold up like a terry cloth towel and make sure that, you know, it's the size of your hoop. Anything that you can do to keep this area level. See how it's level and it's not going to start going ski-wampus on me? So here we go. I'm going to do a little pressing. Yes, you can use some steam on this if you'd like. And it's going to look really, really nice with this, the more steam I say. Okay, so again, I'm being very careful as I go around. I don't want to press too hard, but having it level really helps. Okay, so you can see it's much flatter now. Let's take a look at the front. Yeah, that looks really good. Really good. Okay, so with that being done, I'm going to add some paper tape. So I want to make sure and hold this in place. And I can just put it on there ever so lightly because I can actually turn it around and press from the front here in just a minute. So don't push too hard on this tape. All right, at this point, again, I'm just kind of taping it in place. I'm going to flip it over, and now I can press it a little bit more. All right. Okay, so with that being done, I actually need to now place my egg fabric. So how I do that is I'm going to once again turn it over so that I see the back, and I'm going to grab my egg fabric and place this right side down. And I'm going to also put some tape there as well. We don't want that moving, right? Again, I'm doing it very lightly. And now flip it over and do a more firm press. All right. Do you see it coming together? Isn't that adorable? Okay, so at this point, I can now put it back into my machine, and it's going to do a top stitch around the egg. So you can choose whatever thread color you'd like. I have white in my machine, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with white. All right, so I'm going to pull this out just so you get a more clear picture of what just happened here. You can see that it did a top stitch all the way around the outside edge, but there's definitely that gap between the background of the egg and the front. So we're going to take a piece of water-soluble topping from Kimberbell, and we're going to place it over top before we begin stitching this next part. And that way it just helps ensure that the foot doesn't get caught in this little area. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Just like that. And if you want to, you can place a little bit of paper tape just to hold it in place. I'm going to go ahead and just use my hand very carefully right here. And it's going to stitch the placement outline for where the chick is going to go. And on this particular design, it's having us use FlexiFoam, which I'm super excited about because that's going to make this little chickie have a little more dimension. So this is where I'm going to just hold the FlexiFoam in place until it begins to stitch, and then move my fingers out of the way and let it tack down. Now it's time to trim away. All right, so we're going to put this back into the machine and do the placement outline for the fabric. Place the fabric over top and let the machine do the tack down stitch. And it's time to trim away the excess fabric. Now the rest is easy because all I have to do is change out the thread colors for the different fills, and I'm going to give new life to this little chick. All right, it's all done. And now just go ahead and remove any remaining topping. And if there's any little pieces that are still left in there, you can always wash them away afterwards. All right, perfect. Oh my goodness, look how cute she is. Oh, I love it. I'm going to go ahead and also remove the tape as well from the back. And then it's just time to trim this baby up. And it's just a 4.5-inch square. So you could use your orange pop rulers to do that. Or if we measure, let me see if we're at 4.5 on this line. 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 4. Yep, there, and 4.5 there. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my line to trim this up. And there we go. Oh, she's just as sweet as can be. All right, so our bottom row is finished, and then it's time to do the top row. It's very, very similar, just a few minor differences. So we'll go ahead and jump into that in our next lesson. See you then.